What is going on? We are back with another episode of Green Bay Rewind. I am so stoked to be here. I appreciate you guys swinging in as usual. Taking a look at the comments before we start. We got some breaking news tonight. It's not too often on a Tuesday night that we start with some breaking news, so that should be interesting to talk about for a little bit. Let's see where people are checking in from. I see Nicole's here from Knoxville. Thanks for checking in again, Nicole. Appreciate you being here. My guy Ron in Appleton, weekly watcher. Ron, appreciate you. Tony, who always drops some great comments coming in from Waiuiga. I probably said that wrong. Someone's going to want to take away my Wisconsin card for that one. Corey in New Ulm, as always. Good to see you, Corey. I'm curious, Corey, and I might miss the response back, but being in Minnesota has got to be an interesting time right now with how the Vikings are doing. I'm sure they're riding high and talking about how they're putting together a dynasty only for it to come crashing down. So Jenny, good to see you coming in from Germantown. Chad in as always, winner of last week's giveaway. Congrats again, Chad, coming in from chilly Altoona, Iowa. I almost said Altoona, Wisconsin. Yeah, it's chilly here too. I actually had to turn on my heat, which is unfortunate. Tom coming in from Cincinnati. Good to see you, Tom. Rob, good to see you, man. Great page, GBP Daily. Great person, great page. Does a lot of live shows as well, so good guy to check out there. My boy Swag Coda coming in from Minneapolis. Joshua, good to see you. I got the pleasure of bumping into Joshua at Legend Larry's on Saturday, so that was a fun surprise. Good to see you again. My boy Casey coming in from Phoenix, visiting with Mama Carter as well. What's up, Mama Carter? Michael coming in from Oklahoma. And let's get into this. Let's get into this breaking news. So the Packers have released Braden Narvison. Rip to the Narv dog. It was a good run while we had it. I mean, what he had just as many missed kicks as Xavier had interceptions. So it's not in the grand scheme of things. If you're comparing it to other defensive backs, it's probably a good thing to have that few of kicks. But Xavier has a lot of interceptions. So it's definitely not a good thing. Obviously, no ill will towards Braden. He did his best he could. His father-in-law is a Packers fan. I'm sure this is devastating. You never want to see anyone lose their job. That is the rough part about this business. But this business is very results-driven, very unfortunate. But, kind of next man up. As a kicker, I'm sure he would say the same thing because in his pre-interviews with the team, when they first kind of signed him, he said that he always wants, as the kicker, to have the game on his shoulders. And I think he'd be pretty oblivious if he would deny that he hasn't really made the most of that opportunity. So very unfortunate, but we wish him the best of luck. But the Packers did sign kicker Brandon McManus, who was recently released from Washington prior to the season started earlier this year. I think March of 2024, he was released. There is some allegations around him. Now, all of those have been cleared in court. There's insufficient evidence. So, frankly, all of those allegations no longer matter, which is probably why the Packers brought him in. I am somewhat surprised. It seems very unlike the Packers to bring in someone, even if there is insufficient evidence or no evidence at all. For the Packers to bring someone in that has their name tied to something is kind of not a Packers move. But I'm glad the guy's getting a second chance if he truly is innocent, which obviously no one really knows the truth. But the insufficient evidence, you're innocent until proven guilty. So there you have it. But yeah, Brandon's been in the league for a while. He's a wily old veteran. He's been in the league since 2014. I was taking a look at his numbers actually. Over the 10 years, he's been kicking. He has an 81.4% completion on his field goal, and then a 97.2% on his extra points. And I'm thinking, okay, how does that compare to my beloved Mason Crosby? And it's almost identical, which is kind of odd. Now, Mason Crosby was in the league for a very long time. I think he was in the league since 2007, so 17 years, 16 years, something like that. But Brandon McManus has an 81.4% field goal completion. Mason Crosby, 81.3%. As far as field goal, or excuse me, as far as extra points, 97.2%. Mason Crosby's 97.3%. So pretty similar to Mason Crosby, which is really interesting. I don't know. I didn't check other kickers. Like maybe that's kind of the sweet spot for kickers that you see. But I didn't get a chance to check. I was giving my son a bath and making dinner and stuff like that. So I didn't get a chance to dive in on everything as far as like around the league. But pretty interesting that it's almost a mirror stats. Yeah, Tony dropping wisdom as always. I mean, desperate times calls for desperate measures. When you have a team that you think is a special team coming into the season, you can't let it sit on the shoulders of a kicker who's inconsistent. We saw that last year with Anders missing the field goal, the big field goal in San Francisco that was ultimately part of that loss to the 49ers. You need those points. And we saw that from Narvison earlier this season. He missed one against the Eagles that would have made it a lot better of a situation. And then he missed one against the Titans. My memory's kind of bad, but I think it was the Titans that would have made it a 16-point game, but ended up missing it, making it a 13-point. If my memory's not, my memory's probably wrong on that, but you can't have that. I see some other check-ins coming in before I move on to talking about last week's game, but that was the breaking news from the Packers. I know there's some other news around the NFL, which we might talk on if we got time, but I don't want to spend super long time on that, especially with kind of talking about last week. But I see Katie checking in from Iowa. Good to see you again, Katie. Appreciate you always being here, hanging out. Dan's coming in from Racine. Dan, appreciate you stopping by and checking out. And Michael says he missed 2 against Minnesota. Obviously costly when you look at the end of that game. Thanks for calling that out, Michael. I don't know how that one. I probably just blacked that out because I hate the Vikings so much. So let's kind of talk about the game. I know there's some other stuff going on, but we'll touch on the game. Maybe we'll swing in and talk about some of the other trades going on. I know I do have a segment about questions that you guys have, so it could be a good opportunity to talk about the other trades or whatever you're thinking. But what a win by the Packers on Sunday, defeating the Cardinals 34-13. I know I saw a lot of people discounting this win. Not Packers fans, of course, fans of other teams, mainly NFC North. I certainly wouldn't discount this win. Now, if you beat a lesser team by 3 points, maybe that's a win you don't feel as good about. But the Packers took care of business. I mean, anytime you can score over 30 points and hold your opponent to 13 points, that is huge. Forcing 3 turnovers, of course, coming off of 3 fumbles, which we'll kind of talk on the defense a little bit more. But man, a good team is supposed to take care of business. They don't choose their opponents just because it's maybe what is deemed a lesser team by others. Does not matter. You take care of your opponents. I feel like in previous years, whenever we would see the Packers go against a team that you're supposed to win, it was always way too close, or it was the team would upset us. Now, I don't think the Cardinals are that bad. They obviously have some weapons. It just didn't seem like their day, and that's fine. That's how life goes. But the Packers took care of business. They didn't let the Cardinals back into the game, which I was concerned about at the end of the first half, as many of you probably were. But it was nice to see unbelievable game plan by Matt LaFleur. You saw probably one of his best coach games, at least this season. Now, I don't want to say it was the best coach game because we saw him put together 2 incredible game plans when you had Malik playing as the starting quarterback. But that was an incredible game plan by the Packers. You saw the team always keep it third and manageable. You didn't really see third and longs at all. We talked about last week how the prior week you saw the Packers get into a lot of third and longs that made life a lot more difficult than it needed to be. And that was the opposite case this week. On second and long, you saw the team maybe do a check down or an easier completion, allow them to pick up a big chunk of yards and make it a third and manageable as opposed to a 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12. something that's a little bit more of a difficult thing to convert on. So hats off to LaFleur. That was as a fan, that was like one of my favorite games I've seen him coach in a little while. Now, Matt's a great coach. He does so many great things. So I very well could be overlooking some great games he's coached, but that was a great one. Jordan Love, have yourself a day, my friend. Ended the day with 258 yards, 4 touchdowns, and unfortunately that interception where Bull Melton slipped towards the end of the first half. Not on Love's fault. Of course, that's just how the NFL goes. That's how football games go. Players slip, mistakes happen in that regard. But Arizona could not get home no matter what they wanted to do. So that made life a whole lot easier for Jordan, allowed him to kind of sit back and pick it apart. You kind of see his knee seems like it's getting better. You saw him roll out. You saw him able to escape the pocket numerous times and get first down with his legs, which is huge. Once you're starting to see that mobility come back, that's an incredible thing to have for your quarterback and something that we've been limited on for the last few weeks. I saw a stat. I saw a few different stats here that I'm going to talk about. He's put together 8 straight games with 2 touchdowns or more, which is the longest streak in the NFL. And he's the first quarterback to put back-to-back 4 touchdown passes. Or I should say he's the first Packers quarterback to put together back-to-back 4 touchdown passes at home since Brett Favre did it in 1995. Anytime you can put yourself in a bucket with Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers, I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to be in the same category as a Hall of Famer. I do think that's a little cherry picked because it's like back-to-back home games, where I'm sure Rodgers did it, but maybe one was an away game. Either way, to have back-to-back 4 touchdown games, very great. And Jordan took care of the ball this time. Last week we saw him put 4 touchdowns, but he also threw 3 interceptions. I think that was last week. Pretty sure that was last week. I don't know. I feel like it's all starting to kind of blend together now at this point. But I'm pretty sure he had a few turnovers last week. And then despite missing 2 games this season, he is second in the NFL with 12 touchdowns, tied for second with 12 touchdowns. He's tied with Joe Burrow, right behind Baker Mayfield at 15 touchdowns. It's an impressive way to start the kind of season in your 4 games that you've played. I'm excited to see kind of everything start gelling maybe a bit earlier than we saw last year. And you're going to need it this year in this division. We welcomed Romeo Doubs back, of course. You saw him come back off his 1-game suspension. Thankfully, he had a great game. I was worried that if he maybe didn't have the greatest game, you're going to see people being terrible human beings online. But he had 2 great touchdowns. The first one, I thought for sure he was going to drop it with the conditions outside in the rain and kind of how it's a fingertip catch and the defender kind of fighting with it. I thought for sure that thing was getting dropped, able to hold on to it and then extend out for the touchdown. But even more impressive was that second touchdown. That second touchdown where Love's thrown off his back foot, sends it about 35 yards. Romeo, just looking back, makes a nice adjustment to the ball that the defensive back doesn't know to make that adjustment because he's paying attention to Romeo. Made it look so easy to just stop on a dime, catch it, and walk into the end zone. So that was, I don't know about you guys at home, but I was definitely yelling about that one in my living room, like mind blown that happened. So, this is going to be me venting here for a little bit. I've seen a lot of people online because I posted about Romeo, how happy I was for him in the welcome back Romeo and the great touchdowns and just happy for him. The amount of comments I saw of people like, he needs to smile more. Why isn't he smiling? Why is he so serious? That's just how Romeo is. I don't think it has anything to do with the suspension. I don't think it has anything to do with whatever he potentially has going on. That's just how Romeo is. If you look back over the few years now that we've had him, or the 2.5 years that we've had him since we drafted him in 2022, that's how Romeo is. Some people are just stoic. You saw that from Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders would make 9 guys on a defense look like fools. He would run into the end zone. He would hand the ball to the referee and just jog back to the sideline. No celebration, no excitement. Some guys are just like that. Romeo is one of those guys. He's just there for business. He's there. He embraces with his teammates and then gets back to the sideline. That's okay. That's just how Romeo is. I don't think it's I think it's kind of weird to just be like, "Oh, you need to smile more." Like I feel like if I went to work and I did something good and my boss or coworkers are like, "Hey man, you need to smile more." I feel like that would just like irritate me even more. So, I just think that's an odd statement to make, but I saw way too many people make that comment. If you want to see, go back in some of my posts and look. The amount of people that are like, "He needs to smile." It's just unbelievable. Anyway, I'm off that rant. Sorry, just had to rant a little bit. Uh, Packers defense. We talked about the 3 turnovers, forcing 3 fumbles. Even more impressive, I thought. I shouldn't say more impressive. Even as impressive in my eyes was how they contained Kyler Murray. They held him to 14 yards off of 7 attempts, which is pretty impressive considering what he can do with his legs. I saw someone, I saw someone say that Kyler Murray runs like a toddler who has something he shouldn't. And since my son is kind of in that stage now where he's kind of walking quicker, I visually can't unsee it now. So I thought I'd share that with you. But Kyler just kind of scrambles. He's quick. He runs like a toddler who has something he shouldn't. He's a very elusive quarterback, and for the Packers to play the way they did, keep their eyes on Kyler while covering the field was so impressive. You know, that one where it was the read option and he broke out, and Evan Williams played that thing like my mind blew right there because in the past, I feel like the Packers have never been able to contain a running quarterback. And to see Evan square shoulders and stay level with him, not overreact to which way he's going, and just kind of put flat foot, stand there, make him be decisive in what he's going to do and pursue from there. But it made Kyler hesitate enough to actually have other defenders swarm him and made it for an easier time to stop him. Absolutely stunning job there. And that second half, it seems like they've been adapting so nice in the last 4 games that I'm so excited to see what continues to go on. I'm still a little like over the years. You've been burned so many times by bad defenses that I'll text Chad during the game and be like, "Oh, I just don't know. You know, watch them convert this 3rd down here, this 3rd and forever," and then the Packers stop them from converting. So I now at this point I feel like I've jinxed it if I don't say it, but I still feel like I can't be excited yet, even though I am excited. Um, defense, another fun stat: defense has produced 2 or more turnovers in the first 6 games so far this season. First time that's happened since 1996, which I feel like 1996 rings true. Like the Packers did something big that year, like end of 29-year championship drought against the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 31. I feel like that's what they did in 1996. No, I'm not saying the Packers this year are going to win the championship Super Bowl because of the fact that they're doing something they did in 1996 when they won a Super Bowl. But it just goes to show the defense is doing a lot of good things, considering 1996 had a number 1 ranked defense. Now, the defense currently gives up a lot more yardage to be number 1 ranked, but things are trending in the right direction, and that's just great to see. There's a lot of season left though, it's nice to see. Talking about this season here and things that we're seeing, but I couldn't help but just be impressed with the job Gutekunst has done as well. Over the last 3 years, he's really drafted some incredible draft classes that have really shaped this team to what it is. 2020 was a horrid draft class for him. You thankfully had Jordan Love come out of that made it somewhat of a redeemable draft class now. But other than that, I think AJ Dillon might be the only one that's still on the team. I could be wrong, but AJ Dillon, there might be one other. I don't remember if Slayton's from that draft class or not, but either way, Jordan has saved that draft class. Still not the greatest. You'd like to get more productivity than just a quarterback, but in the NFL, quarterback's a huge, huge, huge thing to hit on. So we'll take that. Oh, no. Slayton was 2021. Sorry about that. But yes, 2021 was Stokes, Myers, Slayton, and McDuffie. Oh, and that's kind of aging now a little bit better. In the last couple of years, it looked like an even worse draft class. Stokes is still kind of a liability. Obviously, he's had his injuries. That makes things a little bit rockier. But Myers, I don't know, he's up and down as well. Slayton, McDuffie's getting a lot of playing time as a linebacker, and he's looked pretty positive in a lot of ways, especially for a late round guy. But then you get into 2022, 23, and 24, and boy, that's when things kind of change for the better. 22, you got Quay Walker, who's he'll have moments where he just looks so great. And then you'll have moments where he's just kind of a liability. And I think he's maybe still growing in this defense. I'm certainly not, we talked about it last week. I'm certainly not like ready to give up on him by any means. I know Jason asked about that, like where I saw Quay. He's got a lot of promise, and I hope we see that kind of continue to come out of him. Devontae Wyatt was part of that draft class as well. And you can notice when he's not on the field, the disruption on that defensive line is just not there the same way, especially this year. It feels like he's taking a big splash, but he was taken in 22. You have Christian Watson, of course, which had a touchdown on Sunday. He does so much that he doesn't get credit for by taking the top off of a defense. Sean Ryan, who's done a great job on the line. Romeo Doubs, of course, 2 touchdowns on Sunday. Really great route runner, really great hands, fantastic receiver. Zach Tom, can't say enough about him. Zach Tom's just an absolute stud. Kingsley Engelbar and Rasheed Walker. Rasheed's obviously a big part of our offensive line as well, and Engelbar's great depth on that defensive line. So 22 is an outstanding draft class. 23, LVN, jury's still out on him, still waiting for him to kind of take that leap. Musgrave, who's a solid tight end, dealing with injuries this year. Jaden Reed, I guess he's an okay receiver. I mean, he makes a play every once in a while, right? No, Jaden Reed, dog. Very happy to have him. Tucker Kraft, who's been incredible. Colby Wooden and Carl Brooks both just seem to get to the quarterback. Dontavian Wicks was a 5th round steal, and then Carrington Valentine, a 7th round steal. So hell of a draft class there. And then 2024 is already looking great. Jordan Morgan, who's been starting in the guard when he wasn't injured. He obviously had a shoulder injury that sidelined him for a little bit. Edrin Cooper, I almost said Edrin James. Edrin Cooper, honestly, looks like he's inside linebacker 1. When he plays and he's on the field, he looks like just a dominant player on that defense. And the way he reads things, the way he reacts, I'm happy to see he's starting to get more and more playing time. It's very well deserved. Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, both of those guys are getting a lot of playing time, and it's showing. They're incredible on the field. We need Cooper, Williams, and Bullard on the field, I feel like, at all times, because they're just playmakers. Marshawn Lloyd looked great until his injury sidelined him a little bit. I'm excited to see what he does. And then Tyron Hopper looked incredible in the preseason. I'm excited to see him continue to develop. But already 2024 draft class is looking like a great draft class. So that'd be 3 draft classes back to back to back that Goots put together some strong draft classes for, which you're seeing the results now. You have young guys that are making big plays, that are making positive impacts on the game and allowing the Packers to win games. So incredible. Now, if we have to talk about negatives, obviously Brandon Arvison, that's a negative. That my notes was like, going to talk about like what should we do, but the Packers obviously have answered that. They have released Braden and brought in Brandon. That's fun. Brandon. And then the only other like thing I'm nitpicking on is the stupid penalties. Excuse me. We saw that play by the Cardinals just before the second half where they'd have been looking at like a 3rd and 2. Instead, Jair had after the play penalty that gave him 15 yards and a free first down, kind of derailed the momentum they had on that defensive drive. Maybe stop them on the 3rd and 2, and now they're punching the ball away. And rather than letting them score 7, which led to 10 before half, maybe that just doesn't happen at all. So, I mean, if that's my nitpicking of the game, that's a pretty good game. Before we kind of get into some burning hot questions here, so if you do have some questions, feel free to start dropping them. But before we get into that, let's talk about the NFC North a little bit. You know what? And I'm sorry, I forgot. Boy, I don't know if anyone called me out on this. I got too into the exciting breaking news that I forgot to do the giveaway form. So I'm dropping that now. So here is the giveaway. Let me make sure that's the right form. Okay. Here's the giveaway form. Feel free to sign up for that for the giveaway. We'll be drawing that later on in the episode. One entry per person, please. So just enter once, even if I post it later on, but just enter it once. So there is that. But now let's talk about the NFC North just a little bit. I like to kind of recap where the NFC North's looking before we head into the next week. But what a tough division this year. I looked back because I was curious. I was like, has there ever been a year where all four teams for the NFC North, where all four teams finished 500 or better? So look back. The NFC North is not that old. If you're old enough to remember when they restructured it, it used to be the NFC Central. But the NFC North isn't super old. So I looked back in the NFC North history, no team, the Packers, Bears, Vikings, and Lions have never had a year where they all finished 500 or above. The closest I could find was back when it was the NFC Central in 1995, and the division ended with the Packers at 11-5, Detroit 10-6, Chicago 9-7, Minnesota 8-8, and then Tampa Bay at 7-9. That's a pretty competitive year as well. I'm curious if we're going to see that kind of continue throughout the year, or if we're going to see, maybe a team go on a losing streak and kind of fall off on that. Hopefully it's not the Packers, but in this year, who knows what could happen. It's a very competitive year. Sunday is going to be an interesting one. The Lions are at the Vikings Sunday at noon. Minnesota's coming off their bye, giving themselves an opportunity to freshen up a little bit. And then Detroit's coming off that whooping of Dallas, where they completely embarrassed them in Jerry's World on his birthday, which, I mean, you love to see. I know it's the Lions and we want them to lose, but man, you love to see that. But a huge loss for the Lions and losing Aiden Hutchinson for the season with his leg injury. He was leading the NFL in sacks at 7.5 this season, so it is a very huge loss for them. And interestingly enough, his 7.5 sacks are half of Detroit's sacks this season. So they're at 15 this season. Aiden producing 7.5. Current standings: Vikings are 5-0, Lions are 4-2, Packers and Bears are 4-2. All right, I'm sorry, did I say Lions 4-2? Lions are 4-1, Packers and Bears are 4-2. So, what a season so far. But let's get into some questions here. Let's party. So, a huge thank you to Legend Larry's. All season long, they're going to be sponsoring this segment of the show. I appreciate them immensely. My favorite wing place by far, best wings I've had. Definitely the best. Like I love their sauces. I love their DOA and their Scary Larry. So huge fans of Legend Larry's. And then did want you to know that all season long, if you go to Legend Larry's, whether it's during a Badgers game or a Packers game, they have $10 wings when you're dining in, $10 a dozen. So if you're coming into Green Bay and you're like, hey, I want to get some good wings, I don't want to pay a ton, go during a Badgers game. Go check them out. Make sure the Badgers are playing on a Saturday. I saw Joshua there on Saturday. He was getting some wings during the Badgers game. So he got some $10 dozen wings. Yeah, it's a great deal. I need to get in there more often to get $10 wings. That's for sure. So let's start seeing some questions here. I'm going to kind of rewind back. Let's see. Michael says NFC North is pretty strong. Wouldn't it be crazy if all the NFC North makes the playoffs? I wonder the logistics of that. Great question, Michael. I wonder what the logistics of that would be. Like, how is that even possible? I'm sure it is, but I'm curious if you could play around with like a playoff, predictor or whatever the thing to put out the scenarios. But I'm curious on I can't imagine that's ever happened. I think that'd be a bigger deal if we'd ever seen it happen. I don't think it will happen. I think one team will eventually start to kind of fall back a little bit. I know the Bears have played some weaker opponents, but they're getting stronger as they go. So I'm not going to like discount them by any means. It seems like they're kind of picking up momentum as they go. They have a strong defense. So really, maybe we see history. I don't know. Dakota, you're such a troll. Long-time viewer, first-time poster. You're not a first-time poster. Do the Bears still suck? Yeah. Yes, Sway Coda. I was gonna try to think of like an analogy to use with that, but I got nothing. Let's see here. Yeah, Joshua, I was gonna ask you, how was your hot wings? I know we talked about going up another flavor here. I'm curious on what you thought of those. Here we go. Casey. I meant to ask Casey, and this is going to be relevant to many people watching here, but Casey lives in Phoenix. The Cardinals are obviously in that area. So I'm curious on how the vibe's been in Phoenix, Casey, with the Cardinals losing to the Packers. I hope you've been wearing your Packers gear as much as possible. How do you feel about Rodgers and Adams reuniting in New York? Also, to addition, how do you like that Hail Mary, my boy? It's interesting. The acquisition the Jets made, and great question, Casey. Thank you. The acquisition that they made with getting Devontae for a conditional third that could go up to a second. He's got a big salary cap coming up the next couple of years. We talked about that previous weeks of 40 plus million for both years. Sounds like they're going to try to restructure that, move some stuff around. They have Rodgers through the end of 2025. It's an interesting acquisition. I'm gonna try not to sound like too salty about the thing, but like towards the end of Rodgers' time in Green Bay, we saw a couple playoff games. We saw one with the Buccaneers, and then we saw one with the 49ers, where there's too many times I felt like where Rodgers, and I'm not trying to knock Rodgers, right? Every quarterback has their flaws, and I think this was Rodgers, where Rodgers would like pinpoint onto a receiver. He went to his safety blanket a lot, and I think that was like part of his perfection, right? He didn't want to throw interceptions. He didn't want to make mistakes, so he'd go to guys he trusted. Now, in a lot of situations, that was Adams. Adams made a lot of plays, which was part of the reason why he was that safety blanket. But in those last two playoff games that we saw him lose to the Buccaneers and to the 49ers, you saw him stare down Adams in so many opportunities where Lazard was open. There's that slant where Lazard could have walked in. Instead, he tried throwing it into like double coverage to Adams in the back of the end zone. Or in the 49ers game, there's plenty of opportunities where Lazard or another a weapon was maybe open for an easier check down or easier first down. Instead, you'd see Rodgers trying to go for that home run ball to Devontae. And I think that's kind of Rodgers' flaw as a quarterback, especially when it comes to that postseason and really wanting to like, I don't know if that monkey on his shoulders just kind of getting heavier and heavier, but like, I'm sure as he goes into the postseason and thinks about his legacy, and he thinks about the fact that he gets dogged a lot for winning one Super Bowl. And I think maybe that voice gets louder in his head as he's going, and he feels this extra need to be even more perfect, which then ultimately leads to his demise as a performer. I don't know if that's the case, but I don't know. It's an interesting acquisition by them. Kudos to the Jets for going all in. I know a lot of people are always crucial on the Packers for not doing so. But if the Packers went all in, we wouldn't be enjoying what we're enjoying now. So I think there's a reason that good franchises generally tend to not go all in, because they know that if you sell everything for these magic beans, it doesn't always pay off. In fact, it very rarely does. I think the Rams, as of late, are the only team I can remember that selling out really paid off. Usually it just, I don't know. Usually I think you end up like the Browns that are regretting for some of the financial decisions they've made. Ooh, my boy, Matt Ramage. Good to see you, bud. Appreciate you swinging in. Another great live show. Matt, I'm going to break the news, but I'm going to be on Matt's show on Thursday. So if you want to come hang out with Matt and I, on Thursday at 7 p.m. I will be there. So I'm excited for that, Matt. Always fun to join your show. Do I think Jordan Love could beat Aaron Rodgers in an arm wrestling match? Whew, that's tough. I'm gonna say yes, just because Jordan's younger. I think they both got some good arm strength. I wouldn't put money on it either way, but that's a fun question, Matt. Let's see here. Dakota coming in with another one. Let me get a drink here. So Dakota says, and Casey, was it? I can't remember if it was Casey and I talking about this. No, I think it was someone else and I were talking about this at work today. But if we had a legitimate chance to trade for Max Crosby, who or what would you be comfortable giving up for him if you're Goot? Max is a very expensive acquisition as well. He has a pretty expensive contract. What would I be comfortable giving up for him? I don't think, because I don't know. He has an expensive contract, and I don't know how it compares to. I don't know how it compares to, like, other players in his position as far as pay. If it's high up, I just haven't done enough like research into it. But I know he's going to be making, like, I think 18 million in the next couple of years. I feel like you probably are in that same spot of giving up what you gave up for Adams, where you're taking some of that money off their plate. But Max would be an incredible addition. Dude has a motor that just doesn't quit. He is relentless, and he's always being a pain to the quarterback. I would love to see the defensive line have Max Crosby on it. I think any team would love to see him on their team. So, great question. That I don't know. I would love to see that happen. I don't think it would happen. I don't know if he'd want to come to Green Bay, but I'd love to see it. Derek asked, do you think Reed is too valuable to leave back on punt returns? Yeah, I mean, I talked about, good question. Thank you for that, Derek. I talked about this, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, that I don't know why Jaden Reed is back there on punt returns. In my opinion, Jaden should not be returning punts. Jaden should be strictly just doing wide receiver. I feel so much better with Keyshawn back there all day long. I mean, a big reason of why you paid him what you did is because of his return abilities. I still don't understand why we ever put Jaden back there. I know Jaden's an explosive playmaker, but I think he's getting to that point, like you mentioned, Derek, that he's too valuable to be putting him back there. You need him too much in your offense. Keyshawn's becoming super valuable as a nickel cornerback, but I feel like there's other options on our defense now that maybe you could sub him in. We saw Evan. Was it Evan that we've been seeing play nickel, or is it Javon? I don't know. I think that maybe both interchangeably, but we're seeing them play nickel as well and doing really good at it. I just think that Jaden's just way too valuable to be having back there, taking punts and taking those extra hits. Put him in your offense, let him go. Put Keyshawn back there. Keyshawn's explosive. You saw the return he had last week. That's what you want out of punt returns. He flipped the field and made it for an easy touchdown. So, yeah, great question here. Yeah, Chad brings up another thing. I don't know if this is that's not in the form of a question, but I think you had a question earlier that I missed. But yeah, the Packers are having their winter warning this Sunday against the Texans. Kind of odd timing to have it in October, but the Packers are going to have a whiteout, all white uniform, all white uniforms going against the Texans. Kind of odd that it's not later in the year, like a December or January, where it's actually winter. I know this week's felt like winter here a little bit. I know we had a winter warning last night here, but it's going to be like 70 degrees the rest of the week. So it is an odd decision for them to make that happen during October. It's not even Halloween yet. How are we going to have what are they like? Target? Why are we talking winter? I mean, Target's already got their Christmas stuff out. I don't want to believe that the Packers subscribe to that same philosophy of already looking ahead at winter. It's not even Halloween yet. Yeah, I think the only other thing, if there's any other questions, feel free to submit them. But the only other thing I want to talk about is that the Bills acquired Amari Cooper, which I don't know if that's going to be a big signing for him. I don't know if Amari Cooper's kind of on the backside of things. I know he had a huge career in Dallas for a while, initially starting in Oakland, and then had a lot of success in Dallas before going to the Browns and doing what happens when you go to Cleveland and shriveling up and hating your career at that point. But could be a good acquisition for him. And then in exchange of signing Cooper, they actually cut MVS. So bummer for MVS. You never want to see anyone lose their jobs. I always liked Marquez. I know he frustrated a lot of Packer fans, but he's always a nice guy. I was happy to see him win some rings with Kansas City. Unfortunate for him to lose his job and now be a free agent, but I'm sure he'll land somewhere in the league. Well, we can kind of let's throw this form here one more time. If you haven't done so already, feel free to enter that. We're going to be doing the drawing in a second. I think, and if you have already submitted it, ignore the form. Only one submission, please. Yeah, I don't know. I saw, and then I think I saw Minnesota acquired Cam Akers as well, which is interesting to pair with Aaron Jones. I thought maybe that Aaron Jones his injury maybe is worse than they thought, but the report I saw that Cam Akers is just there to help, not so much to take any production as far as like because of his injury that he's dealing with. But I mean, you're seeing Aaron Jones kind of continue to be banged up, and I love Aaron Jones so much. I'm so thankful for everything he gave to the Packers, but I'm still very happy that we have Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs just seems to run like just, I don't know. He seems more durable too in this. And I'm not trying to jinx anyone here, but it just seems like he runs hard. He can take the hits. He can kind of keep going. It's just his style of running. And the Packers have leaned on him a lot. Him and Emmanuel Wilson have looked great as a 1-2, and he's been a really good acquisition for the team. I do love Aaron Jones, and it sucks that he had to go to Minnesota, but I guess it is what it is. Final question here, and then I'll do the drawing. Swaycota says, do you wear your Eric Stokes jersey on Saturday for your guided fishing trip? I don't know. I don't know what options you have. I mean, I like Stokes. From a player perspective, he probably hasn't lived up to that first round pick, but he's a nice guy. So I say, why not? Let it fly. All right, let's do some giveaways here. Give me 1 second. I got to clean this up so we're not doxing anyone's email or anything like that. How's everyone week going by the way, while I'm doing this? I'm curious how your week's going. Everyone having a good week? I know I got a busy week at work, which is never a bad thing. But it's been nice working on some new projects, and hope everyone else is having a good week here. Anytime you can come away with a victory Monday, that's always good. And having a victory Tuesday here is also a win. See here. Sorry, just filtering all this stuff. It usually takes a little bit. So, like I said, I'm not trying to dox anyone, and not trying to dox anyone's email address or anything like that. Oh, Jordan, real funny on your name. Good thing I know who you are. Otherwise, if you win this, good luck to you. All right, so we have 16 entries. I got to share my screen. I'm still figuring out this technology. One day I'll get it right. Probably not. All right. 16 entries. Good luck to you guys. And if you do win, just make sure you let me know and give me the number 1 through 40 that you're picking. So here we go. Ooh, Iowa Joe snaked it again. Nice job, Iowa Joe. I know you won. I want to say you're one of the winners week 1. So if you want to let me know you're here, give me a number 1 through 40. That'd be greatly appreciated. Huge thank you to Nicolay Law. We're waiting for that. Huge thank you to Nicolay Law. all season long, we're going to do giveaways. So all season, if you hang out here, the giveaways are going to be here. And then if the Packers were to lose, we're going to do a drawing for another giveaway, because even when bad things happen, like the Packers losing, Nicolay Law has your back, which I love. Nicolay Law, I'm so thankful to be working with them. So if you are injured, make sure you get Nicolay. Should probably change this. I get so excited for these giveaways that I forget to kind of update my my background here. All right, I saw Joe commented 26 and up, and then I got another thing that I got to announce here after I do this. So Joe says 26 up. My birthday's on the 26th, so maybe this is a good one. I have no idea. I don't know what's in anything because it's all randomized. You can't see it anyway, Joe, but that's 26. Good luck. Oh, did I freeze? Can you see me? Am I frozen? Can anyone give me anything? Make sure before I open this. I'm not seeing any comments, which makes me nervous. Okay. Joe says it's good. So, okay, we're good. 26. Gonna open it. Jordan's probably just drinking too much. Jordan, are you at a bar in Hayward again? Oh, I do. I have such a good story with Jordan that I want to share, but I should probably save that for the next Packers-Vikings game because that was part of it. So, Joe, congratulations once again. You won a Boyd Dowler 8x10. I still have your address from last time, so I will get that in the mail. Appreciate you entering, and congratulations once again. So something fun, this week, Nicolay reached out to me, and they said, we're just not giving away enough stuff. And I said, well, what should we do about that? I want to make sure that we're giving away enough stuff, and that life's looking good. So they said, why don't we make it a little fun, and we're gonna add another form of a giveaway on the show. So let's load this here, and we're gonna talk about it. So what we're gonna do is I have 50 scenarios here. If this scenario that we draw, if it hits on Sunday against the Texans, next week we'll do another giveaway. So if they were to lose and the scenario hits, then we're going to do 3 giveaways. So, super nice of Nicolay Law. They're just like, hey, let's give away more stuff. Let's have some fun with it. So let's see what scenario you gotta root for on Sunday. There's a lot of weird ones that I threw in here. Not like weird, but some of them are harder than others for sure. An Evan Williams interception. So if that happens on Sunday, we will be doing another giveaway next Tuesday. So super excited to do that. We're going to do that the rest of the year, just to make it a little bit more fun and give you something additional to root for on the during the game. So once again, thank you to Nicolay Law. They've been incredible to work with, and yeah, Tony's got a Nicolay can koozie at the game on Sunday. I have like a handful of them. I use them obviously every Tuesday. Big fan. Yeah, thankful for them for sure. So let's see. Yeah, so make sure you're rooting for that Evan Williams turnover on top of things. But let's talk about this week's game. I'm going to try to field comments here a little bit more as we're kind of talking about it, because I want to make sure that we're interacting, but I also want to make sure that we're going through this stuff and kind of talking about the game that's coming up. So this Sunday at noon, the 5-1 Texans go against the 4-2 Packers. Texans only loss come to the Vikings, and they're coming off a 41-21 victory over the Patriots. They've looked good. Their offense and defense both look great. We'll kind of talk about their numbers and how they're looking. So kind of averages here, their total yards a game. They're 6th in the NFL with 375 yards on average per game. Big part of that's their passing. They're 5th in the NFL with 256. From a rushing perspective, they're 15th in the league at 118 yards per game on average. Points per game, looking at 23.8, which is good for 14th in the NFL. Packers on the flip side, pretty balanced. Total yards, they're 4th in the NFL with 400.8 yards a game on average. Passing, you're looking at 233 yards, which is 10th in the NFL, but they're second in rushing at 167 yards, which is great. Never would have thought I would see the day where like the Packers are almost leading the league in rushing. I suppose part of that is you lost Jordan for 2 games, but you're still holding top of the league in rushing yards, which just shows how balanced they've been. Points per game, the Packers are looking at 27 points per game, which is 8th in the NFL. This is where Texans really start looking good. Not only do they have a high-powered passing offense, but their defense looks great. They only allow 277 yards on average a game, which is 3rd in the NFL. Passing yards, they're pretty stringy on what they allow at 162 yards, which is 4th in the NFL. Rushing yards, they allow 113 on average, which is 13th in the NFL. Points per game, they've allowed 22.5 on average, which is 16th in the NFL. And then how the Packers look compared to that, 338 yards on average each game, which is 18th in the NFL. Passing yards, they're 25th at 228 yards. Rushing yards, they are 8th at 110. Points per game, they are 9th in the league with 20.2. So the big things that we're kind of seeing there is the defense for the Texans does not let up a lot of yards at all. They're extra stingy when it comes to passing defense, where the Packers are a little bit more stingy on their rushing and the points they're allowing in the game. Turnovers, Packers lead the NFL with a +9 turnover differential. They forced 17 turnovers this year so far to date, which is pretty interesting because last year they had 18 year to date. 18 on the season. So to be almost at that point now through 6 games is very impressive. And then the Texans have a 0 turnover differential. So they've forced 7, but they've also given up 7. So now that we kind of know that, I'm curious how you guys think the game's going to go. Derek bringing up another good point here, good question. Would I like to see Jair travel with Diggs? The Texans have a lot of weapons. They're obviously without Nico Collins, but Diggs is a big one. We're familiar with Diggs. Joe Mixon, Tank Dell, Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson. I mean, you have a lot of weapons now. Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, both of those guys are they can wreak havoc on the defense, which shows. Their defense. Their defense gives up, their defense can produce a lot of sacks, which when you have those 2 guys on your defensive line, that's no question that's why it's happening. Would I like to see Jair travel? I want to see Jair play to his strengths, right? I trust that you have other guys that you can kind of take Stephon out of the game as much as you can. You're never going to be able to take him out of the game completely. He is a weapon. He is a great wide receiver in the league. So you're never going to be able to take him out of it completely, but I think you can limit him. I'd rather see Jair do his thing and be where he's most comfortable. If that means traveling, let him travel. If that means let him stay on one side, let him stay on one side. I'll see what happens. I'm curious what's happening, but if I'm the Packers, I think this is how I'm thinking about it. Like I said, you're without Nico, which is a big loss for the Texans, but they have a lot of weapons. They can do a lot of great things. I think if you're the Packers, you need to stay balanced. You need to really lean on that run game like we did last week. Last week, we stayed very balanced. We had a lot of success from the run, which allowed us to stay in those third manageables like I talked about. We need to have a game plan identical to that. Lean on Jacobs and Wilson. Which tends to be the Texans' weakness as it is with their rushing defense. But not only that is you're making their defense stay honest that way. You're not allowing Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. to rush the pass rusher and disrupt the pass rusher, which is going to be crucial if you want to win this game. What is interesting is the Packers have allowed 8 sacks on the season, which ranks 2nd in the NFL. So we don't allow a lot of sacks. While the Texans are 6th in the NFL in sacks produced at 19 sacks. So it's going to be interesting to see which side's going to be budging in this game. Is it going to be the Packers allowing sacks, or the Packers going to stifle the defense or the Texans pass rush and really slow them down? I'm really interested in that. Now, on the flip side, you need to contain Stroud like you contain Murray. You cannot let him just continue to extend plays with his legs, escape the pocket, escape the blitzes, escape the pass rush. They do get sacked often. The Texans have allowed 17 sacks this season, which is 25th in the league, and the Packers have generated 16 sacks, which is um, I guess I didn't put where they're ranked at in the league, but they've generated 16 sacks, 8 of which came against the Titans. So it could be skewed a little bit. You know, the last week we didn't generate any sacks. Pass rush has been really meek as of late. They had a lot of pressures last week. They just weren't able to get home. So you need to make sure that you're getting home, especially on an offense that really isn't, especially on an offense that's allowing sacks. Now they do have Tunzel as their left tackle, who I think I saw that he hasn't allowed a pressure yet this year. So that's going to be a tough task. You obviously are going to have to exploit it elsewhere and really make Stroud uncomfortable where you can. My hope is you can make him uncomfortable, sack him a few times, hit him here or there, and make him force some things, force some turnovers, and capitalize off of those. So if I'm the Packers, that's my focus. Make Stroud uncomfortable. They give away the ball as much as they take it away. They allow a lot of sacks. The Titans have allowed, I think, 17 sacks as well, and they're 24th in the league, or tied, I guess, with the Texans. So if you can get the same production that you got against the Titans, against the Texans, you're going to be in an okay day. It's going to be a tough game. Stroud's dangerous quarterback. He can throw on a dime and make some incredible plays. Yeah, it's gonna be a game. I can't wait for it. Thundermitten says that he wants to see Stokes step a bit. I think we all would love to see that. You're certainly not alone on that. He's fast. He has the speed. You just need to be aggressive. You need to be able to play a little bit more physical, play your size, and hopefully you can turn that corner. I think I'm scared his time's coming up though. And I don't know that we'll ever see that, especially when he's seeing more limited playing time with Carrington be there. Let's see here. Packers are ranked 11th in the league. Thanks, Tony. Appreciate you always. Tony's always here fact checking me, and I appreciate that about Tony. If Tony ever leaves the live chat, this is definitely going to go way out more off the rails than it already is. So that's kind of the recap of what we're going to see come Sunday. I'm excited. I don't know if you guys are going to be there. If you're going to be there, hope to bump into you somewhere. I don't think I'm going to go down to the game at all, but if you see me out and about, make sure you say hi. I don't know. If you see me out, you're never bothering me unless I got a mouthful of food or something. Maybe then just wait till after I'm done eating. But like Joshua, I saw him at Legendaries, and I appreciate him stopping by and saying hi. Let's talk about the fun story of the week. I like to always end these shows on a fun story. Before I do that, if you are coming to town and you need some resources, check out my website, The Green Bay Guy. I'll pull it up here. I'm sure you guys are all aware, so I'm not telling you anything new here, but I have a guide that helps people who are coming to town try to find places to eat, drink, things to do, things to see. I do have a disclaimer here on the bottom that I have the palate of a 7-year-old. So, my ratings are based on my experiences. Just because the place might not be rated the best doesn't mean it's not that great. But I've put together some of my favorite places that I'd recommend that anyone who's coming to town check out. So I do the same. So if you are coming to town, you need that resource, check out thegreenbayguy.com. So shameless plug here. Let's go here. So this week's story of the week is a fun one. In 1992, the Packers acquired Brett Favre from a trade with the Falcons. They gave up a first-round draft pick in exchange for Brett Favre. A trade that, by all accounts, shouldn't have happened. And let me explain here. So after the teams agreed to the trade, Brett Favre came in for his physical, and then that's a requirement for finalizing the trade. If a player fails the physical, the trade is null and void. During the exam, the doctors diagnosed Favre with a vascular necrosis of the hip, which is the same condition that Bo Jackson had that ended up ending his playing career. So same condition. They recommended that the Packers fail the physical and do not go through with the trade. However, Ron Wolf, when he heard this news, he decided that he would overrule the doctors and push the trade through. He believed Favre was not only the best quarterback from the 1991 NFL draft, but the best player in that draft. And he wasn't going to let that trade go through, or excuse me, he wasn't going to let that trade go and not have that player that he believed was the best player of the 1991 NFL draft. Favre, I guess, would go on to have an okay playing career. He'd play through a few injuries here and there. No, he redefined what toughness was in the NFL. He would start 297 consecutive games, even more if you're including playoffs, which is an NFL record and one that is unlikely to be broken due to concussion rules and all these other rules that we're seeing in the NFL. I don't see that you can ever have a player break that 297 consecutive starts. And I should also note that special teamers are not included in consecutive starts. Mason Crosby, I know, broke the record from the Packers perspective, but they don't get credited towards consecutive starts as a special teamer. Pretty interesting, though, that a trade that in all intents purposes should not have happened. Ron overruled the doctors and ended up going on to create an Iron Man player that put together an incredible string of consecutive starts, played through so many injuries. Obviously, dealing with those issues today. He's been very vocal about it in his documentary that he's coming out with, or that he came out with about concussions. But interesting of what could have been or what could not have been had that trade been null and void. So yeah, I appreciate you guys all hanging out. Appreciate I see a lot of familiar faces in here week in and week out, and I appreciate you guys swinging by and making this part of your weekly routine. And if you are new here and checking it out, I appreciate you swinging in, even if it was just for a little bit. Hope to see you in them, swinging by more often. It's great talking with you guys. It's great interacting with you, and I appreciate you all swinging by. Go Pack Go as always. Can't wait to see you guys next week. Same place, same time. Have a good rest of your week, and go Pack Go.